This is Metzi from Yellow Brick Card Club. You can find us at Yellow Brick Card Club on Instagram. There we have links to our free Discord, our video streams, and whatever else we got going on at the moment. You can find Pierce at Pierce Breaks on Instagram and YouTube, and at reddit.com/r/Pierce Breaks. Both of us run lively, free Discords. Come check us out and enjoy the show.
Good evening and welcome to the Yellow Brick Card Show, Gripes edition. Maybe not. Maybe have a little discussion. Joe, how's it going, man? How you feeling?
I'm doing good, man. I'm on the upswing from a little winter sickness, but doing well. How about you?
Excellent. I'm humming along, man. Just getting breaks done, packing stuff up, getting a lot of organizing done. So I'm knee deep in it right now. I've done a lot of accumulating and now I need to manage it. So hopefully that'll be my goal for 2025. Hopefully something we can talk about another time. But today we had a few topics, maybe some mailbag topics, maybe some off the cuff topics. Something we've been talking about or trying to talk about for a long time that someone asked about in the Discord was the idea that we may or may not be in Junk Wax 2.0. And for anybody who hasn't heard the term junk wax or junk wax 2.0, junk wax usually refers to the era of time, mostly in the 90s, where early 80s, when cards were being massively printed and you could pick them up at literally any store you went to, and it was just a big boom. So there's a ton of cards out there, and some people feel that we are returning to that age with the amount of printing companies are doing now. So there's a lot of discussion about that. Joe, you have any more thoughts on the intricacies of what junk wax means?
Yeah. I mean, my own definition, which I think mirrors most people's, but I do think there's a little bit of confusion over what that might be. But in my mind, it's starting in late 80s, peaking probably in the mid 90s is what I think of it as. And that's when, I mean, how many card companies had a license? 4 or 5 or more. So not only do you have so many companies, you have every company printing, 1 million copies of every card. And as we creep into the 90s, we start to get parallels. But prior to that, you really just have base cards and occasionally, a checklist card or, there's some exceptions, but basically you have just sets put into packs and there's tons of them. So at this point, the only value, other than a few notable error cards, like Fun Face or the No Name Frank Thomas and things like that, your condition is the only thing affecting pricing, really. So I don't know, I guess, where do we start, right? So like we refer to this era and there's so many people, I don't know, between the age of 35 and 50 that currently live through that era, and we now joke about it. But I think based on how they react to fear over Junk Wax 2.0, it's not a joke to some that they thought when they pulled X card as a child in the late 80s, early 90s, that, that was their retirement. And one, I think part of that is, children think a lot of things that unfortunately your dreams get dashed sometimes as you get older. But also we didn't realize that there was, 1.5 million copies of the 89 Griffey. That's actually a bad example probably, because those good condition cards are worth some money. But, and I guess it really, for me, comes into a conversation about why we collect cards. What are we hoping to get out of it? Are we collecting? Are we investing, air quotes? And I'm sure we'll go back and forth here, but spoiler alert, I'm not sure that we have a Junk Wax 2.0, and even if I concede that we are in that era, it doesn't bother me.
All right. Well, and I kind of had a similar feeling. I was, let's see, it mostly started in 1990, so I was 12, I think. But I also made sure I got a copy of Beckett magazine every month. We went to the card shop. I got Beckett magazine. I looked up the price of all of my cards, and they were never worth anything, even then. So I kind of knew, unless I got that Griffey, which I saw in the card shop all the time, that wasn't probably going to be my retirement plan. But yeah, there were a lot of people who thought that their collections, maybe if I have the whole set, or if I hold these for long enough, then they'll be worth something. But yeah, you're right. We had no idea what was going on. Maybe someone a little bit wiser could have pointed out that you could buy them at gas stations, or I bought them at the drugstore when my dad went out to get cigarettes. He'd bring me and get me a pack of baseball cards, which was awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of the feel. And I think it looks like Baseball Cardpedia officially stops the Junk Wax era. It says post Junk Wax era at 1994. So I think you're pretty accurate. And I think, I want to hear what you have to say about it. So a lot of people say, and I'm not sure always about the context, but I think it's mostly around when, especially sets like Flagship comes out and we get some statistics about print runs, and people's minds are blown with how many cards are being printed, and they say, oh, we're printing to the moon and we're in Junk Wax 2.0 again. And it's kind of an emotional reaction. Do you agree? Have you seen any other discussions where they're a little more reasonable, or do you think it's just kind of a thing that people complain about? Like, is it actually a topic that people have real conversations about, or does it just pop up in social media areas with, people talking about large print runs?
Yeah, and I feel like anything I say here, or either of us say, is somewhat subjective. I'm not looking at any sort of hard data points. Print runs, we certainly could look at hard data points, but I think the people, in my opinion, the people most upset about large print runs currently are the same people that are not hobbying the same way I do. And I think worse, and point B, I guess, would be they want the best of both worlds. They want their cake and they want to eat it too. So they don't like the high print runs. They don't like the high box costs. They get mad when it's not available, and they blame, breakers. They blame, well, why are they putting it in every, like you just mentioned, every hardware store, and they're starting to do that again. But you can't have it all. And I think by virtue of the fact that we have these parallels, and there probably is too many of them, quite honestly, but certainly to one, but even, a good Independence Day parallel from Flagship, or a classic gold or whatever, those aren't printed any more now than they were 10 years ago. There's 50 of them. Well, I guess you could argue there are more than one set of parallels with the same numbering system, I suppose. But so just that alone is going to save us from a complete repeat, in my opinion, of the initial Junk Wax era. But more importantly, and this is certainly an opinion, not a fact, but I just don't get hung up on that. We've said it in previous episodes. I love it when I pull a card that's worth money. Do not get me wrong. I mean, it's great. But to me, that's the silver lining. That's the bonus. That's the dessert. That is not what I planned for as far as pack pulling. And then even in the singles game, if you're truly like trying to do the flip game and only the flip game exclusively, and you're trying to say, Jackson Merrill is going to be great. I'm going to spend X amount of money on his first Bowman before he even hits the big leagues, and etc. And then I'm going to flip it and I'm going to make 3X, whatever it is. Good for you. I've flipped cards, and I will continue to flip cards. I'm not raining on that parade completely. I don't understand fully how, just show me all the cards. Like, we've talked about all these various releases, and we've talked about everything from medium end. I don't know that we've discussed the super high end stuff a whole lot, because neither one of us really are too involved in that, and certainly not breaking it. But we've discussed $500 boxes and we've discussed $30 boxes. And I say, do what you want, collect the cards you want, collect the cards you like. And I know it's cliche because it's said a lot. I just think it's true. Like, it's fine. Like, it doesn't bother me that there's 10,000 of the same copy of the cool holiday parallel I like. Like, I just think the card's cool. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think I feel like it's a little hypocritical to complain about an era, but also not want box prices to be too high and be upset when you don't get enough hits in a box.
Right.
There's math involved here. You can't have all of those things all at once. So,
it's like the triangle, right? You can be
what's that?
It's like the triangle, right? You can be near two of them at the same time, but really far away from the third thing.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work out. Yeah.
I mean, make your money if you can. It's great. I love Bowman, as discussed, and will be again in the future. Some of it's some prospecting. A lot of it's my own Mariner guys, and I'm not too worried about the value, but like some of it is prospecting. Go for it. Just enjoy it. Like, and for me, I have so many cards, especially breaking, but also in my personal collection, that I consider to be pretty transient. Like, I'm okay with holding them for a moment in time, on the breaking end for a moment in time, literally. But on the personal side, it's cool to me. I'll have it for a while and maybe I'll trade for something else, or I'll give it to my son, or like, I don't get too attached with 95% of my collection. Because to me, it's all about like, okay, that was cool. I had it for a year. I had it for 5 years. Oh, this other thing's cool. So I'm going to switch over to this. And I don't know. Maybe I'm, I'm not the only one, but maybe I have a rosier picture than most, but I just think people hobby differently, and those that are hobbying a certain way get frustrated at those things that they really just can't have it all.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on a lot of things that are accurate, and I wish I could provide the other side of the spectrum of this conversation, but I almost lean a little bit more towards what you're saying. But try to figure out what some other people maybe thinking about, or why this might be a hot topic to some other people. But I think one thing that you touched on is people have an emotional response to any hobby, right? And there are a lot of people who strategically collect or strategically invest, or analytically do it. But there are also a lot of people who all they do is they see a card and they love it and they get it, or they trade for it, or they pull it out of a pack and their eyes get wide. Like it's highly emotional, and depending on which emotion you're bringing to the table, it's going to color your response. So if your emotion is, oh my God, this is super cool, no matter if you're breaking a $1,000 box of Topps Chrome Update, or you're breaking a $30 blaster box, whatever you get in there, if it looks good and it fits in with what your goals are in your collection, you're going to be happy with it. And there are other people out there who do the exact same thing we do, down to the letter, the same way we collect, and they're going to have a different attitude about it. And their attitude might be, oh, this isn't as valuable as I wish it would be. Or, oh, that box really sucked. We're getting screwed over because too much of this stuff is being printed, so I didn't get what I wanted because the good stuff is in all the other boxes that I didn't get, right?
Yep.
So first and foremost, I want to say it is all about your perspective. And if the advice I always got was, if you are really anxious or frustrated or have a negative emotion with the hobby, take a step back and figure out what in particular you're really uncomfortable with. And most of the time it'll be about money. And you may need to reevaluate your relationship with money and the hobby if it makes you that unhappy. But if that motivates you to get what you want, then maybe that's what you need. So. But I also think the other part about it is that people love to complain, just in general. Yep. And so if you have that emotion, if that's your emotion with these things, you're gonna go out and complain about it, right? Because the truth is, the problem is the same with every set of cards that comes out. So you can have the same complaint every single time. So every time something new comes out, somebody opens it up. Oh, you got a crappy box. oh, this is printed to the moon. We're in junk wax era 2.0 because there's too many cards printed. But it really just stems from the frustration of not getting what you wanted, right? So if that's your attitude and you're unhappy with it, maybe take a little bit more time talking with people or figuring out like what people's collections are and why they're collecting them. I mean, we have people who are making Jose Caballero rainbows. Like these are people who are like, they don't care about it's actually great to them that the cards aren't worth very much because that means it's easier to get them. So, there's every type of person is collecting every type of card. And for different reasons. And one of the great things about being in a community like ours is you get to find all those people and see what they're collecting and see that a lot of them may not be spending a lot of money, or they might have different goals. Like, I'm going to get all of my cards by trading this year, or, stuff like that. It doesn't always have to be about money or how valuable it is, or how much it might go up over the years. That might be nice. And it might be nice to know that some of the stuff you have might be valuable enough in the future to get some of your money back if it doesn't go up in value as much as you want. So, it's recoverable. At least it's not like you're collecting, like newspapers that are going to crumble to dust or something. I don't know. It's bad example, but like perishable foods, you're collecting perishable foods for some reason. Like, that's going to be a total loss. So, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like, you might have that, but a lot of people don't do that. They don't care about that. So, it's getting a fresh perspective. And I think so it almost kind of, it doesn't invalidate the conversation, but it almost makes it a little bit silly, because it's like, you don't really mean that. You don't really mean it when you say we're in Junk Wax 2.0. You might not even know what that means. But if you really want to talk about it as a serious topic, I try to look into it with a little more factual information. How
dare you, sir?
Yeah, try to calm down and look into it. And it's difficult to find print run info for older stuff. There's good resources like Baseball Cardpedia and Trading Card Database and a lot of stuff that has some info, but the history of a lot of this stuff is really just tribal knowledge, word of mouth. A lot of it's not written down. A lot of that information was not released to the public. And so a lot of it is like, well, I've heard at some point they said that in the early 90s, they were printing 1 million cards for a set, right? And that sounds like a big number, but we're getting odd sheets now. We have people who spend a lot of time looking at them and doing the math to figure out just how many cards there might be. And we have more accurate data. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but at least something to give you an idea of what you have and what we have here.
Yep.
So it's hard to say, but if the comparison you really want to make, and you really touched on this, is there might have been 1 million cards printed for 1990s tops, but I'm looking at Baseball Cardpedia, which is by no means comprehensive, but the ratio should give you an idea. There's 30 to 40 sets on here, and a lot of them are like Kmart or Posts, or like stuff that came out of Bubblegum, or like, there's a few Donruss, a few Fleer, there's a couple Score, there's a handful of Tops, and then there's Upper Deck, and most of the rest of them are just kind of like, other companies throw offs, that kind of thing. So yeah, they might have printed 1 million, even if they printed 1 million cards in each of these sets. If you go to 2024 in Baseball Cardpedia, there's 72 different pages, and they're almost all of them are big releases. It's filled with Tops, of course, and Bowman, but it's all stuff that we've heard of, right? If you're paying attention at all, they're marketing all this stuff, and it's hitting you really hard. So, and if you look at the print run data, I think last year's flagship Series 1 was easily 1 million cards. So if you're trying to say, well, yeah, okay, so we're printing 1 million cards in that set, and we were before, and it was Junk Wax then. But like you said, the vast majority of those cards were the same card.
Yep.
They didn't do parallels. They didn't, except for some very, some exceptions. They didn't do autographs on cards in the packs.
Yep.
They didn't do inserts. They had a couple inserts like the Diamond Kings and stuff like that, but they didn't have like 20 like we do now. So right now we're in a situation where, yes, each player has 200 one-of-ones every year or something like that. I think back in 2022, I heard that one player, a rookie player, had like 270 one of ones or something like that, which people thought was ridiculous. But it's like, no, those are opportunities for you to get one of those cards.
Sure.
If you
Now,
want,
is that licensed or all?
that was just a top set. That was just
Interesting.
top sets.
Okay.
Yeah.
More than I would have guessed, but
It's there's a lot. And I mean, if you just look at flagship series 1, like there's, if you're a top level player, you have 20 different cards or something like that, and you have autos and you have relics, and all of those have one of ones, and that's just one set. And there's 70 sets on this list. So, do the math. There's tons of stuff out there. Now, there might be a lot of cards out there, but if you're not looking at base sets, that's a whole different story. They're all different, right? And that's what you're saying, is we didn't have that in the 90s. We had there were some, like, there's some cards that pop up and you're like, oh, these came out and they were hobby box only. And, people weren't ripping hobby boxes like we are now, not even close. It was more like people were buying them at gas stations and not getting those hobby exclusive things or those things you would only get at the card shop. So those things weren't going around. People weren't talking about those. They were talking about the regular baseball cards and building sets. So yeah, it's not a one-to-one comparison. So if you think about overprinting, you have to think about what's actually in the product that they're printing, and the variation there is. So there might be the same picture, but they're different cards. And people, like I said, people collect different things for different reasons. They might be collecting a rainbow. They might be collecting only color matches. And they have all those options now. You didn't have that back then.
And I think that is one of the better points you made. And that everyone collects something different. So what you or I or someone else might hate, someone else is going to love. I mean, you and I, even within our, we like different things. That sometimes we like the same, and that's the beauty of it. And then even if you want to go to the value thing, I think it's interesting and add some intrigue to see some of these cards are going to just, based on demand and people's preferences over the years, 20 years from now, the rookie class of 2024, some of them will have settled as the most desirable. And we don't know exactly what that looks like. We have some ideas that there's certain parallel types that are generally, those are the standard. Reds to 5, of course, but 5 people max are going to have those. Independence Day is always popular. True gold, the gold to the year numbered. But you really just never know. And to me, that's interesting. I can't say for certain what, Jackson Merrill card 20 years from now, assuming he has the career we think he's going to, which one or group is going to be the absolute top tier stuff. I don't think we know that answer exactly. We have some ideas, and to me, that combined with the fact that everyone gets to collect something differently. I was actually just thinking today, preparing for this, that if I ever pull personally in a personal box, pack, etc., a superfractor, obviously financially I would love it if it was it was Paul Skeens, if it was whoever. But it would also be really sweet if it was a no name, because I would absolutely try to go full rainbow, because I had the most difficult right off the bat, and that would be fun. To me, it's almost the reverse. It's the reverse of what some complain about, I guess. All of these things people are having heartache over are some of the same things that I think are great. But
that's the thing, right? It's just perspective. And so, yeah.
I think this feels like it's dying. And I think I'm certain it comes from the COVID boom, but often discussed alongside of, if not in place of, is the junk slab era allegation, which I would be much more willing to acknowledge. I think we had one. I don't even think there's a debate whether we're in one. I think we had one. And you look at slabs for sale on any marketplace, people were grading some real interesting stuff in 2020, 2021 into 2022. And it's why I can pick up graded 9s and 10s for my PC for far less than the person who graded them paid. We had new people entering the hobby, and just, money floating around that wasn't there prior, and people were going nuts. And now we do have a lot of graded cards that are should have never been graded in the first place, probably. But I'm good with it because to me, it's the essentially it's like picking up a cool card that I wanted for my Mariners in a one touch, except that it happens to have the the authenticated, legit stuff on it. So that to me is much more. I'm much more willing to acknowledge, yeah, that happened, and maybe to some extent happens still. But I don't know how far down the road we want to go on the grading end of things, and I think there's a lot of good things about it. But as discussed, for non-graded, just print runs and such, like, bring it on. I would love to go to the drugstore for whatever and be able to pick up a pack of cards.
Yeah.
I think it's great. And it actually, specifically in the era of life I'm in now with two children, the drugstore example, and this is a real thing that happens, is I go to the drugstore to pick up Tylenol for my sick child. And I really hope there's a pack because it will actually bring him joy while he's sick. Like, and I'm okay if he gets all base. He's okay if he gets all base. I hope there's some cool insert that he likes. I hope there's a Mariner in there that would make it better. But I don't see the problem with this. To me, it's a solution.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're on the right track for your situation, and the economics of the situation is such that you can't, like you said, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't complain about the price and then complain when you get some bad cards, because if it was cheaper, or if they printed way more than to bring the price down, then you're still gonna get even worse cards, and then the cards that are good that you do get are not going to be worth as much. So yeah, there's a lot of economics around it. I'm not articulating it very well, but the whole discussion around grading, I've been getting into Tops Now this last year, and if you look at the Tops Now market, it's just absolutely swarmed with graded cards, because people will grab those and they will grade the base cards and try to sell them. And if you have the right rookie, you can sell one for $100 and you paid for 4 slabs. So if it's just math. If you come out ahead, then you come out ahead. Great. But that means there's a ton of slabs out there. Like I said before, I would love to try to get a BGS Black Label because they're so rare. But Tops Now cards are usually printed and sent directly to you, so there's less of a chance for them to get damaged. And a lot of them have a much higher gem rate and a much higher Black Label or Gold Label with SGC or whatever you want to look at. Those Tops Now cards do really well, and so I think it'd be fun to say you got a Black Label. Do I want
absolutely
40, 50 BGS slabs in my house? No, not really. So it's a tough decision, but it's your goals, right? If you're really down to do that and you want to sell those and go at your pace, then you're motivated to do it, then awesome, go take care of it. But yeah, somebody had a poll in the Discord actually today, just opened, where they asked if you got a very high value card and it was for your PC, what would you do? And like you said, if you got a Superfractor, that's a cool story. And if it's for your PC, that's awesome luck, right?
Uh-huh.
If I got a Superfractor of somebody I wasn't collecting, I would sell it immediately. And if I got a Superfractor for something I was collecting, I would spend a little bit more time thinking about it. But to me, those are opportunities to get the cards you want. And I'm very impulsive. My collecting style is I see it's shiny and I want to buy it. And that doesn't do very well when you're talking about what should I hold long term, or what's valuable to other people, or any of those things. So I will say, I'm going to sell this Superfractor for these other 10 cards I want to buy, but that might be a bad choice. But I don't know if I really care anymore. Like I've been doing this pretty hardcore for the last couple of years, and I'm getting to the point where I don't want to worry about the money part anymore. Like I don't want to have to do the math every time I buy a card, every time I consider, should I buy it or sell it? How long should I hold it? I don't want to think about that stuff anymore. It's a lot of mental energy to just get something on your shelf, So I think I just want to go with my gut with the things I want to collect, and that means kind of allowing yourself to work in the market that's been created, and that means, you know, cards are expensive, boxes are expensive, they print a lot of cards, the checklists are huge, but you know, if they didn't have that, then there wouldn't be enough cards for everyone. Like you said, when COVID struck, this collecting has changed completely in the last less than 5 years, right? And it might be retracting a little bit, but now that Fanatics has Tops and Fanatics has the NBA and NFL licenses coming up in the next few years, we don't know what's going to happen to Panini at that point. I don't know how much they'll have going for them. So maybe that might be the time they get out of the game and sell, and that would mean Fanatics has even more of the market, right?
Yep.
So that's we're on the cusp right now. Like the reason I know that we're not this is not a popular hobby yet is look at the resources we have to price cards, to organize our collections digitally. None of them are good. The best solution to organize your card collection digitally right now is the trading card database, which has been the same for decades.
Yeah.
There's nothing new that's come out. I've used just about any scanning app there is to see if there is one that can get, you know, 4 of 5 of my cards even scanned correctly and put in a catalog, and they can't do it. They can't do it yet. So we don't have the technology. We certainly don't have the stability, and the market is going to change completely. And Fanatics is talking about, what do they say, 4x the hobby or 10x the hobby or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to go hard into this. This is just, and like I said, this is the tip of the iceberg. So if you're complaining about it now, the landscape of this is going to change completely in 5 years. So just hold on to your butts. You'll have something else to complain about. There'll be way more cards. There'll probably be way more sets. They're not going to make less because there are going to be more people. If they're going to 10x the hobby, that means there's 10x of the customers. Either the prices go way up and they lose customers, or they're going to print more stuff. That's just math. So
yep,
get over it.
There's always
change your
more
attitude.
Cards.
There's always more cards. That's kind of what I go back to is like, you know,
Yep.
I spent so much time this year picking up stuff for my collection. Like I finally decided what I wanted to get, and I looked really hard, and I got great deals on almost everything I bought. I might have spent a lot, but at least I felt like I got a good deal on it at the time. But you know, that's just this year. Like I get overwhelmed thinking about like, well, what is going to be there next year? Like I collect Ken Griffey Jr. You think they're never going to make another Ken Griffey Jr. card again? So
Yep.
There's going to be a ton of them next year in every set, and that's going to go on forever, basically. So how much energy do you really need to spend, like getting your collection together at one given point? Like there's going to be there's an infinite supply of cards for you in the future in every different style, color, and format.
Yep.
So just take it slow. Like I fell into the same trap when I started, man, I was going hard. I bought so much stuff off of eBay. Just the money I spent on shipping alone is embarrassing. Like on cheap cards, I didn't know what I was doing. I got all those cards. I got all the cards I have now. That was, I spent 2, maybe 3 years doing that, and now it's like, where did I get? I have a great collection, but I'm not done. You're never done.
Yeah.
So it's a, like I said, it's purely a perspective thing. And it's short-sighted. And a lot of it too is, I'm not going to go into it, but a lot of it is to create the discussion because it provides a benefit to the people who are bringing the topics up. Right. So if you're on social media, your job isn't to have a healthy discussion. Your job is to get people's attention. And
Insight.
the best way to do that right now is to make people angry. So just keep that in mind. If you're really into the news, really like to follow the hobby, that's great. But just remember that the people who are giving you this information often have their own motives and incentives. So
absolutely. It's something I appreciate that you and Metzi and I have discussed very recently. In terms of the podcast, is that there are plenty of places to go to talk about whatever the hobby story of the day is, many of them very, very negative. And talking heads essentially will debate and yell and scream and get all worked up. And we all basically agree. No, there'll be an exception now and then. This is probably the most fired up we've been over something. But in general, I don't think any of us have any interest in going down that road too much. Obviously there's going to be news that affects all of us, and we'll dive into that. But like, who stole from the card show, yesterday? Who did this? Who did that? I think it's terrible. I'm not defending the actions. I think it's horrible, but I'm just not sure we need another another set of people discussing that. And I really appreciate that about what we have going on here.
And I appreciate discussion around things, and I think that's healthy. There's a certain amount that is healthy. I appreciate getting the news from people who like to keep up on it. Makes it easier for me to not have to look around, especially baseball news. Things are starting to pick up, but and I know somebody's going to post about it, so I only need to go look there. And here's another perspective thing for you. I don't like complaining very much, and I don't like being part of the community of people who like to complain about everything. But some people have to do it, right? Some people have to voice their displeasure. Like community feedback is really important, because otherwise Topps is not going to know what to fix, and I guarantee you they're in there, they're looking, they're seeing what people like and don't like. And the print run stuff, they're not going to change, and the other stuff, but they look and they get that feedback. So if you don't tell them, they're never going to know, right? If you don't keep complaining about the price, they might raise it more faster. They might think it's okay, and they might have that space, and they'll try that. So if people want to complain, that's fine, go and do that. And if that's your bag, cool, and go find people that you can relate to and go do that, and hopefully it'll make a difference. But I just don't have the constitution for doing that all the time. I can't suffer through that. So that's I guess that's the feeling, is if you think we're in Junk Wax 2.0, keep talking about it and see where it goes, and we'll reap the benefits, I guess, of the vast variety of cards just this year and definitely beyond. So, it would be interesting to have somebody on who is much more of an investor, like straight investor or dealer even, because we don't have a lot of those folks. I know we have folks in our communities that do that stuff, but they're not super vocal about it usually. So that would be a differing perspective. So if you're listening and you have a perspective, please, we would love to hear it, and love to hear your perspective on this. So I'd like to hear your perspective, Joe, and there's a couple other questions you had that are a little more lighthearted.
Yeah.
And I bet you're itching to talk about them. So what were you looking at to talk about?
Yeah. So I was in a create hypotheticals mood, I guess. And my favorite, not to it just popped into my head for whatever reason. But I've thought about this a lot, because we always talk about minis and, Allen and Ginter and T206 type stuff, mini cards. And then what seems to be more unanimously panned is oversized cards, which Topps has scaled back on recently. So my hypothetical question is, if you had a magic wand and could change the standard trading card size, smaller or larger, would you go smaller or bigger, and assume for the purposes of this thought exercise that if you wave that magic wand, all of your supplies and everybody else's, all of the boxes, all of the top loaders, all of that stuff would also magically match that size. So you're not creating yourself a headache by suddenly changing the size. You're retroactively changing it, going back to whenever we standardize the 2.5 by 3.5 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean,
yeah. So for my point of view, I would, if this were, on a screen, I would grab the corner of that card and I would drag it no more than half an inch to whatever that lands on. If it's 3.5 by 3.5 by
3 by
now,
4.
basically about a half an inch. That would be to me, and I think it just opens up some design possibilities or multiple duals and multiple photos. It wouldn't have to be quite so meticulously placed. And this is not to say I think about this often or think that the standard size is bad. I just think, I think I'd like it a little bigger. I don't know if you remember, I think it was Topps who created a long one in the late 80s. I think it was the same width but like 3/4 of an inch longer. Do you remember those cards?
No, I don't.
They didn't last because everybody hated them, because none of our equipment none of our gear was sized for it, so it just created a big headache. And it didn't last. So I think, it's all or nothing, and without the magic wand to retroactively change them, it's a giant headache, and I don't think anything will ever change. But in my mind, we could go just a little bit bigger.
And that would be the perfect opportunity for them to explore if they wanted to create more cards for more customers, right? Like you said, there's some great opportunities to change the way the cards look, to add things to them, like more autographs or different shapes or sizes. I think that's a great idea. And knowing one particular person that is particularly adamant about the size of cards and how much they dislike anything that is non-standard, I've thought a lot about it. And being a breaker, I have a ton of supplies, different kinds of supplies for every possible situation, and I still don't have any for oversized cards. I have some for minis now, but So I think a lot of that stems from, like, what am I going to do with this card? How am I going to show it? I don't have a binder that fits this. I don't have any sleeves that fit this. Like, people worry about how they're going to protect their stuff.
Yes.
And they don't want to have to go out and buy a whole bunch more stuff. Now, if they became more popular, or if there was cooler cards that were those shape, people would buy the stuff. They would collect it. It would be like none of it ever happened. And the only reason why we have, like you said, why we have 2.5 by 3.5 cards is because all of the stuff that I have in my room is catered to that size. That market could change, and probably will. I mean, I think that's a good bet. We opened some MPB Chrome this year, and I started looking into more Japanese cards, and I learned that in Japan, it's I don't know, custom, or I don't know what the right word is, but when you get an autograph in Japan, you have a special card. It's like a square card, and that's what they traditionally sign. Now, when you get, I looked into specifically 2024 BBM Glory, which is a higher end set. Like, it's a low card number, like you get 6 cards, something like that, a set like that. And they have auto cards, and they're square. They look square, at least. I don't know if I was distracted by the design, but like the place where they sign is square. So like, I guarantee there's a lot more square stuff just because of that, because it's a convention, right? It's the same thing.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's purely conventional, and where we go from here is going to dictate how that's going to work. Now, personally, I actually today got in the mail a very oddly shaped 2019 Heritage, what is called Super Box Loader, and it's probably 3 by 6 or 5. It's probably 3 by 5, and it's got rounded edges. So like, I have 4 different bags that this thing came in, and a horizontal top loader, and none of them fit the way they're supposed to. They just happen to fit well enough to protect the card, but it's awesome. And if it wasn't a Shohei Ohtani, I would probably have it out without a sleeve on it or something like that. Like, a lot of the box topper stuff is not very valuable. And I think they're fun. Like, especially, like I said, in another podcast, like, I got super into minis. I got a bunch of mini stuff now. I have mini sleeves, mini top loaders. I have 2.5 by 3.5 sleeves that have little pockets in them for minis, so they fit into your standard size binders. So that solves that problem, right? Like, you can't do that for larger cards. You can do that for smaller cards. So I like variety. A lot of it might not be for me, but then that just means I'm not the audience for it. So somebody will like it. We had somebody today post a whole bunch of MPB T206. I actually got a box I haven't opened yet, but I got it on eBay. I think it was less than $30, and it's T206. So there's a ton of minis in there, and there's also square cards in there. So they have maybe 3 different sizes in that box. So that box is doing it. I don't think it'll be too much of a jump to make that in American sets. And you know what? If you print the right cards, people will collect them, right?
Absolutely.
If you print the ones that want, if there was a Caitlin Clark card that was just a cutout of her body while she was playing basketball, people would collect it. It wouldn't matter because it's Caitlin Clark and she's the hottest athlete in sports. Or if it was Otani or whoever, it doesn't matter. So yeah, personally, I think I would like them to be a little bigger. I like the design on the cards, the colors. I like looking at the graphics aspect. So if it was bigger, you'd have more space to do that, more interesting cards, and just, bigger subjects, bigger pictures. I think that would be great. Maybe I should start buying some oversized cards.
It's happening. 2025 goals.
2025 goals. Expand the oversized card collection. No, that's definitely not going to happen. But yeah,
it's funny you say that about the supplies because we're breaking. I was just vehemently opposed to undersized and oversized cards just a few short years ago. Still don't love the oversized, although there's exceptions to every rule. One of my favorite cards is a Julio oversized because it's a moment I was there for. But I've totally come around to minis because I now don't have the supplies anxiety I had 2 years ago. Because in preparing for I think it was A&G probably, or no, I did a mixer with a little bit of T206 in there. So I grabbed the mini top loaders, the mini sleeves, and then at this point have various thicknesses for relics and all that on standard size. But so that anxiety of not having the protection is gone. So now I'm like, oh, you know what? Minis look pretty good, actually.
Yeah. It kind of, again, it can change your perspective. It's not a pain in the ass anymore.
Yeah.
It's something that you can actually work with.
Yep.
And it's a great example. Relics are a great example, right? Those cards are non-standard. They don't fit in a lot of our supplies.
Yep.
People are nuts about them. Like, what are the best cards in NFL? They're RPAs, and they're all 180 point or whatever. Like, people, they want those cards. They have the giant top loaders for them. They have the huge one touches, and now and then they have like so you get your graded card. You have a gigantic like oversized slab, and then people want to protect their slabs now. So now there's huge like Pyrex or not Pyrex, like plastic cases for your slab. So now your slab has its own case.
Yeah.
And so like,
where does it end?
People will make supplies for everything. And like I said, this is the tip of the iceberg. Like, we're just getting started. When people start pouring into here, when they just dump all of their marketing money into it, like WWE Chrome is coming out, I think tomorrow. This is January 30th when we're recording this. And I saw Topps WWE advertised on a WWE wrestling program. I've literally never seen that before. I watched wrestling off and on since I was like 8 years old. Literally never seen that before. It's there now because it's a Fanatics product. And that's what's going to happen. It's going to be all over in every space that you're in. There's going to be advertisements for cards, for collectibles, for all of that stuff. So it's going to change. It's going to completely change. This will be like a vintage conversation by in 5 years. In 2030, we're going to be like, you mean you only had what's with all these vintage cards are all the same size? Like, so and tobacco cards, like tobacco cards were the size they were because they fit the format that came in, right? So It's a matter of necessity. And I don't think we're going to be stuck in that situation for too much longer. So that's my perspective on it. I'm embracing it personally. When I started, I have a lot of advice I got when I started, especially the first year I was in a Discord with a lot of seasoned collectors. And, they said things like there'll always be more cards or give me tips on other things. And one of the things they said that was, I was complaining about, like, I had to get a loop for looking at my cards if I wanted to grade them, and I had to get lights, and I had to get all of these supplies, and I had to get all this stuff. And they said, you know what, you're gonna you're going to use them. Like, you might as well get them because you're going to use. If you're getting into the hobby at all, you'll be happy you have that stuff, and you're just going to have it around. So don't worry about it. Just buy it. And then you won't worry about when you find a card that's this odd 3x5 rounded edges card, you're going to be able to store it somewhere. You won't have to worry about it. You can just worry about getting the card and the fun stuff. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, listen to those folks. Get into a situation with people you trust and ask them those questions, because everything they've said so far has turned out to be true. Maybe not the stuff of like, what players or whatever, but like all of the hobby like essentials. It's 100% true. The people who have been doing this for a while, they know what's going on. So take heart what they say, and I think you'll be a lot happier.
Yep.
So we got a couple more things to talk about, but I think we had a very spirited discussion. So we'll save that for another time. But
I'm kind of proud of us for having that spirited discussion when really we kind of agreed on all of it. So
yeah, I mean, it's hard to make it interesting when you have basically the same opinion. But
yeah,
I try to find some stuff that's at least on the other side. Like I said, I would love to hear the other perspectives too in the Discord or anything. We don't like to argue, but we do like to have discussions and other perspectives. So don't be afraid to do that. We're not all jerks, and we won't totally flame you if you say something that we don't agree with.
No. Present a reasonable opinion, whether we agree with it or not, and we're good. Yeah, absolutely.
So we love those conversations. That's what the hobby's about, is having those conversations, showing up the stuff you have. It is really about our differences, because we all have different collections. That means we all have different opinions, and we all have a different focus, and we're all coming together in the same space to share that stuff. So I'd like to be able to do that and not worry about the repercussions too much of saying something reasonable. That's all.
Yep.
So come on in, have a great conversation with us, trade some cards, get in some breaks. You can find us on Instagram, Yellow Brick Card Club. We got all our links there. And we break on YouTube. I'm Waxmoronic on YouTube. I believe your account is Yellow Brick Card Club. Is that true?
Yellow Brick Breaks is the YouTube.
Yellow Brick Breaks. Okay.
The YouTube streaming. Yep.
Yeah, all of our live stuff is up there. If you want to go watch our old stuff, it's a blast. I suggest the box battle stuff is super fun. So you can dip your toe in there.
Absolutely.
And Joe, you have anything left to say real quick before we sign off?
I would just like to give a shout out. This is fresh. Literally on my way home just a few hours ago, I stopped at my post office box, picked up a wonderful gift from El Jefe, who's in our Discord. Unsolicited gift, not a trade, just popped into my mailbox, and it is a museum collection from this year. Cal Raleigh autograph to $2.99, and it is beautiful.
Oh, great.
Awesome. And I just wanted to tell him thank you. I haven't even told him in person. I literally picked it up, did the dinner thing, and then we podcasted. So this is fresh to the point where I haven't even reached out to him direct, which I will do. But it's awesome. And speaking of cards you like, top 3 player for me currently, and I just surprised with a nice autograph from Museum Collection for the Big Dumper. Thank you, El Jefe. That was very kind of you.
Great guy to have around. I've done some deals with him. He's awesome. Thanks, El Jefe. And you heard it here, podcast exclusive graciousness from Kingdome. You're not going to find that anywhere else until the podcast comes out. So if you want to hear it, El Jefe, you'll have to come here. And then maybe in like a month. It's like a Patreon, like we're going to block it off. You don't get that content until later.
That's right. My graciousness is only available at a cost. Is that what we're saying?
Hey, we got to get people listening somehow, right? That's a start. All right, man. It's great talking to you as always. You have great ideas, and I love hearing your perspective. It's very unique, even though, like I said, we follow the same teams. We collect a lot of the same types of cards, and we're totally different, and it's awesome. So I love talking to you. Thanks a lot for joining me, and thanks everyone for listening. We'll catch you again soon. Come in and chat with us, like I said, and let's keep on breaking.